Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Grace, the podcast. I am super stoked for this episode because it's all on Feng Shui. And not only that, we have the amazing PK Odle here, who is the master Feng Shui consultant and the executive director at the renowned American Feng Shui Institute since 1998. I was 8 years old at this time when PK had started. And I have always been interested in Feng Shui and how it can better ourselves, our environments, and I cannot wait to learn more because I really don't know much about Feng Shui. All I know is that I need to reorganize my house for sure. I'm very, I am very sensitive to energies and my environment. Ever since I was a kid, I would always change my bedroom around a lot. I had a bedroom that I shared with my brother and my sister, and they would come home from school. They're like, "Oh, Candy changed the room again," because it's like you just have no choice. I just need to change it. Just something needs to be changed. So I can't wait to learn about Feng Shui with PK. PK, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so grateful for you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Now, I heard of you through Myra Rath, which was the podcast episode of Past Life Regression, which most of you have already heard. If you haven't, you can check that out and listen to Past Life Regression. Myra was like, "You have to have PK on your podcast. She is amazing. She is just like the genius of Feng Shui. She knows everything about it. She comes to my home every Chinese New Year, and I'm telling you, it has changed my life." So I was like, "How did it change your life?" And she's like, "Everything. With money, romance, you name it, my life is good." So I'm so excited to learn more about this. And, I was listening and watching your YouTube videos, trying to understand it a bit more. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to ask her a million questions. So now I always love asking people's backgrounds, of their lives and how they got started and how they became interested in what they do. So did you always know about Feng Shui your entire life?
No, actually, I had never heard of it until 1996. I always knew I wanted to do something that was healing and helping people. I studied healing hand things. I studied numerology, which I loved the math part of that. And I studied bits of astrology and healing stones because we got to talking about healing stones. And, but nothing was like, yes, I have to do this, for my life's work. And then I met, well, when I met Master Sang, I knew that's where I was headed. But the reason why I met him is I had been the on-site travel agent working for the travel agency inside of LA Gear, the shoe company. They
Oh.
moved from 3 buildings in Marina Del Rey to 1 building by Santa Monica Airport. And within 3 years of that move, they sold the name for licensing because they were out of business. And
Wow.
then I was moved into the reservation center. And within 2 months of doing the same job in a different environment, I was ready to quit. Every day I'd go home, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. And one of my fellow employees handed me a flyer for a bookstore. And that's when I saw the words Feng Shui for the first time. And underneath it, it said, "Your environment affects your entire life." I looked around the room. I said, "Luckily, it's Friday night. I can go meet this guy." So I went to that lecture. I got my autographed copy of The Principles of Feng Shui by Master Larry Sang, and it was a rare occasion when he was the one speaking. And so I still have that copy. And from just that copy, it's kind of like the beginning uh, kindergarten version, what you can do on your own, but it's correct because if in kindergarten they taught you an F was a P, you'd never learn to read. So I did what I could using that book. By Monday afternoon, the next Monday afternoon, I was offered, well, I was asked if I wanted to be recommended for the on-site position as the travel agent inside of LA Gear, inside of Creative Artist Agency. And I was like, okay, does it have a private office? Because I didn't want just a cubicle. And they said, yes, you'll have your own private office in Beverly Hills. I went, oh my, Beverly Hills. Is parking included? Because that's what I thought was important. He said, yes, in their building. PK, you don't know who Creative Artists Agency is? And I said, no, who are they? And they said, one of the top talent agencies in the world. And I was like, oh, okay, recommend me. By the next Friday afternoon, I was giving my notice to take that job. And when I went into my training, they said that's the fastest anyone has ever been hired for that position. I had to go through like 3 different interviews within the travel agency and CAA before I was hired. Then I picked the book back up. I said, I have to study this stuff. And that's when I started studying and I started taking classes with Master Sang. By the summer of 97, I was going to do Feng Shui full time. By May of 98, I started teaching at the Institute, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And so you had, where was this book that you had started, like at first, the Feng Shui book from the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
So you had saw
Yes.
that, and that's when you went to the lecture, and that's where you had got the signed autographed copy. So that is pretty neat. I know you have it right there with you.
I was looking to see if I could reach the copy, but I can't reach it while I'm tethered to the
No
microphone.
worries. With you. So isn't it crazy that just that one life moment change where you actually said yes to going to something that would just benefit you? It wasn't going to hurt you. It was just like something that you were
Hmm.
going to test out, see how you liked it, and you fell in love with it clearly. And it just probably rang bells for your calling too. Like, this is
Yeah.
feeling good. This feels right. So,
The kicker is it wasn't what she handed me the flyer for.
really.
She did not hand me the flyer for that lecture. It was something else on the flyer she was showing me, and I saw his face and read Feng Shui and what it was, and so she didn't even know she was doing that.
Oh, wow. That's funny. Now, Larry Shui, is
No,
this, what's
no.
his name?
His last name is Sang, like he sang
Oh,
a song,
Sang. Sang,
Sang.
never mind.
Hmm.
I apologize. In my head, I'm like, oh, Shui Sang. Okay, got it. So excuse that part. So now
All
you
right.
are going full time with doing the feng shui, and on top of it, you're also working at the largest talent agency in Beverly Hills.
Well, no, I left there. I strategically figured my way out of there because my heart wasn't in it anymore. I
Oh,
just wanted to go help people with feng shui. So in the summer, July of 97, I left travel altogether and just started doing feng shui full time. So I was lecturing about it. Was studying deeper with Master Sang so I could become an instructor. And then in May of 98, one of our previous instructors left the institute and I took his place and have been there ever since.
wow, you're really inspiring because there's many people out there that feel that they have to have the 9 to 5 job in corporate America and they have to stay in it to survive. And it's like, no, you can survive doing other things and things that you actually love. So I really admire you for that. And I think that you're going to be such an inspiration to other people as well. And so, what is feng shui? That is the biggest question because I asked my Instagram followers and my Facebook followers, I said, what do you want to know about feng shui? And most questions were, what is feng shui? So can you explain what that is?
Okay. Excellent question. There are a lot of misconceptions about it, so no wonder they want to know what it is. It is not one size fits all. It is not a belief system of any kind, is not related to any sort of a belief system. It is not Chinese interior design because you don't have to like one thing Asian in your house to be using feng shui remedies. It is a sister science to acupuncture. They both came from a book called the I Ching. The I Ching has 8 trigrams, which relate to the 8 directions, and they relate to elements. They relate to the Chinese family members in the old family, like the father, the mother, the eldest son, the eldest daughter, the middle son, the middle daughter, and the youngest son and youngest daughter. And those are the 8 trigrams. And each one of us is born into one of those trigrams, which tells us our general good and bad directions, what color clothes are good for us to wear that energize us versus makes us more tired,
Mm-hmm.
and what direction we should sleep with our crown, our head pointing, and to get a good night's rest, what area of our house to keep clean and neat. All of this comes from the I Ching. And how the elements relate to each other is also taught in the I Ching, and that's in acupuncture. They use how the elements relate to each other and what body parts they relate to. And also in feng shui, we do that. They treat you with needles. We treat buildings with the 5 elements because whether you own or rent, whether you believe it or not, when a building is built, the 4 walls go up, the roof goes on, they get divided up into different spaces for apartments or offices, or it's one main single family dwelling. But within that area, there's an energy blueprint like the DNA in our bodies. Nobody knew we had DNA in our bodies for centuries that we've had bodies until within the last century. So it's no wonder that most people outside of China didn't realize buildings have energies too. And we treat them with the 5 elements. So the most used remedy are metal objects, because the colors of metal are not strong enough to interact with the energies. And all your remedies must be out where the air currents can touch them. And if we are using a color, you have to be able to see it, and it has to be a large enough volume. I tell people the size of an old-fashioned bath towel when you were a kid, not those big bath sheets that are more like a beach towel, okay? Or the size of an unfolded king-size pillowcase. So when we can use colors, we always use colors for fire because it's safer. So reds and purples are the fire colors. We can use colors for water, which are the blues and the blacks, because when you go deep in the ocean, it's black down there. But using an actual water fountain is stronger. But sometimes in a house, there's several places where you need water. So where the fountain will also be bringing money, then I tell people to use the fountain. In the other areas, I just tell them to use the watercolors. Green for wood, because wood is not our furniture. If you have wood grain furniture, it's neutral as long as you can see the grain, no matter what color it's painted. I see some of your wood grain furniture is painted white, so that's more like that part of it is more like having a little bit of metal there. But the color white, you'd have to have like almost a whole white room for it to really affect like metal. So we use the actual elements for metal. So for wood, we would use live plants because of the green leaves that make oxygen, not the stems and stalks of it. If we can't use the live plants, you can use large artificial ones where it's a lot of green leaves showing there because it's the color green. Or I've had clients that already had a big green chair and I just told them where it would work for them. The last 2 elements that are rarely used are earth, would be ceramic, clay, marble, or stone, but not a little stone like this guy. It's got to be a certain poundage for the size of the house.
Gotcha.
So you could use a concrete statue even if you liked it. And it doesn't matter if it's in the shape of a beagle, a bunny, or a Buddha. It's just that it's made out of earth. And that's, let's see, we talked about metal. See, metal causes condensation to create the water. Then water feeds the wood. And then wood fuels the fire. And fire creates the earth. So we've talked about all 5 of the elements we might use as remedies, and that's how they are productive to each other. So that's what I'm looking at to see what's the relationship of the 2 elements that are already in each section of your home, according to the orientation of it and when it was built. And then the annual influence happens on Chinese Solar New Year. You mentioned Chinese New Year earlier. There's a Lunar New Year that's coming up in a few days, but that's not when the Feng Shui energies change. Feng Shui works with how the sun moves. It's all about when the sun is disconnected from Earth within a building. That's when the energies combine inside the building. So we use the Chinese Solar New Year, which is the halfway point between the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, and the spring equinox. So whatever that time is on February 4th is the exact beginning of the Feng Shui year. Occasionally, it's maybe 10:59 p.m. on the 3rd or just after midnight on the 5th, but the majority of the time it's February 4th.
That's really interesting. You know, that is between those the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and that's when
it's a spring equinox.
Sorry, spring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I swear I'm listening.
That's okay.
My feedback, I'm listening and then it's coming out wrong. So that's really interesting that that's the place where the Feng Shui energy is like become, would you say, the strongest, or the time to really maneuver things in your home?
Yes, that's what Myra was talking about, getting her annual update, because most of my clients, I email them their annual updates on their floor plans and then I color code it. I use red to show what remedies don't need to be changed, and then I use blue because it shows up stronger to show them what needs to be changed. And then they call me and we talk about it, and I walk them through the changes they need to make on February 4th. Because what happens is the annual visiting energy that's interacting with the inherent energies of the building, they make a shift. It's kind of like they're moving on the game board. So they make a shift within the house, which is why one year can be better or worse in the same house with the same decor and the same people, and they haven't changed anything. But February 4th comes and they start losing money on the stock market, or they get laid off, or other things happen because there are some major things. I mean, they could have an accident, or their relationship could break up. It all depends on what happens at the energy combination. So that's why we do the annual update, so that they fix it and forget it.
Right. Well, that makes
Mhm.
sense because say somebody's in a relationship and they're living in a home with a partner and they go through a divorce, the decor is all the same, but clearly the romance and whatever else that's happened in that relationship definitely shifts the energy for sure. So you
Right.
wouldn't keep your bedroom the same, I'm
Mhm.
assuming, with
Yep.
from that recent, previous partner. So that would make sense that you would need to update and change things around. Now, go
You
right ahead.
make me think of so many other things. There's a energy combination that takes the annual energy to make it happen, because it's a three-way combination. And in Feng Shui, we call it the lover's triangle. And what happens is two of the elements combine are interacting with each other, that causes the husband to get a mistress. And then two more of them interact in a different way, and that causes the wife to get a mister. That's the way Master Sang it says lover. And then there's the others combine a third way, two of them, and it causes separation and divorce. So we call that the lover's triangle.
That's crazy. And I
Yeah.
truly believe in that. I believe in the energies in your home and your environment 100% affect your life.
Hmm.
Money wise, relationship wise, health wise, 100%. I mean, there's times, and I'm sure you feel the same way when you go into a client's home, because I did not mention this, but you do help people worldwide remotely with bringing feng shui to their home. So I can imagine you as a feng shui master walking into somebody's home, be like, oh shit, yep, okay, here we go. I can't handle this. Is it hard for
Luckily, I am not like you, dear. You're the medium, and you can, and you feel things and interact with the spirits. I don't feel the energies, but I can see the circumstances they're living in. And when I do the calculations, it reveals to me what's going on in the building. And then they put the remedies in. Now, people like you that are sensitive to energies, you're going to feel it as soon as the energy shifts. Most of my clients are not that, and they trust the feng shui when their circumstances change. I
absolutely.
love skeptical husbands. So I had one client. She teaches people how to speak their business, and he's a separate PR agent. Hello, darling. Um,
Sorry.
and
She never does this. Stop. Okay, continue.
so 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 these were a power couple, and ran her part of their businesses from home.
Mm.
And so she says, we're having our home feng shui. He said, fine, you're going to do the remedies. I don't want anything to do with this. He was very skeptical about it. Then she put in all the remedies, and one of the remedies was a large fountain outside. I don't know if you've seen Myra's house, where she had to put the fountain a certain place. Well, they had to put a large fountain outside a certain place, and that brought more money to her. But because he also lived there but didn't run his business from there, his business increased. So soon I'm getting a call. Can you go to his office now?
I
Yes.
love that. That is so good. Yeah, I need some fountains up in here. So that's funny because I just about, I'd say 5 months ago, we bought a little water fountain, from Lowe's. We're like, I need some tranquility. Let's get something for our porch. Now, our porch, it has like this bright, bright orange color. And I know that colors, I'm sure, are a big thing too, which we'll totally get into. And I have my water fountain out there. So I would love to know your intake, where I have this porch attached to my house. And I know that you probably need more of a visual of the building. But what do you think the color of the orange on my porch and a fountain out there, is that something that you can
Well,
translate for me?
yes, I can translate. Orange is one of those colors that has two ends of the spectrum. There's the earthy oranges that you find in nature, in the desert and the ground and everything. And then there's the fiery oranges that you see in the sunsets. So it depends on which end of the spectrum, the orange spectrum, that it's falling. Is it a fire orange, or is it an earth orange? It's one of
It's
the rare
okay.
colors that could be one of both. So it's a
It is
fire
like,
orange.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what came like that. It's like
So
macaroni and cheese.
so so what happens when you put fire and water together?
It burns out.
Yeah,
like the
and
fire stuff?
causes steam and can injure people. So inside of a house, in the remedies, we would never put fire colors and water together. But in our wardrobes, who doesn't like wearing red and black or purple and black? So those are watercolors. So outside on your patio, I wouldn't be concerned. I wouldn't tell the landlord we need to paint over the patio. But when you look out on the part of your patio, what side of your unit is it on? Is it east, west, south? What is it?
That's a good question. I think it's on the give me one second. The sun sets that way, so that's west. So it faces the east side.
Okay. So that's west-ish because the sun sometimes is setting in the southwest or the northwest is not exactly the 45 degrees of west all the time. But so that's east-ish. So if you can figure out what's the 45 degrees of east out there on your patio from the center of your house, then or your unit, then get the fountain in that east portion because those are there are two directions right now. Outside, I can't tell people inside because I don't know what the energy combinations are in their buildings. But outside right now, anyone can put large water fountains. And we're not talking like just taking an indoor one outside. Large water fountains for outside. In the east or the southwest will bring people money.
Oh, well, shit, I need to go move that right
Yeah.
now.
Now, but these are not the east or the southwest from your map because the top of your map is what's called true north. You have to find out where the magnetic direction is.
Okay.
So on our maps in Southern California where we are, the top of the map is true north and magnetic north is about 12 degrees to the east. So
Okay.
you've got to angle it. So you got to angle it over to the east. So if you were looking at the top of the map, you'd go to your right about 12 degrees to find out where magnetic north is. You can also use Google Compass. Google Compass will show you the magnetic directions if you tell it to what's called draw, D-R-A-W. My accent sometimes is too much of a Southern drawl. So you draw a route, R-O-U-T-E. You click that button and then it'll show you what the magnetic direction is of where you're pointing the compass. Because on Google Compass, when you point the compass, it's telling you the true north reading up in the top right-hand corner until you hit the button next to it says draw route. Then you can see it translated to magnetic.
Ah, very interesting. I
Mhm.
love that. And I
Yeah.
think that can help a lot of people being able to go right to that
Yeah.
site and be able to figure it out.
And on your compass apps, you still have to hold it level like you are holding an old-fashioned camping compass, and it's going to give you the reading on the top of the phone away from the charger end. So you're still going to hold it flat, and you have to calibrate it every time you open your compass app. So basically, you're doing a figure 8 in the air.
Uh-huh.
And when you download it, go into the settings and make sure True North is shut off. So it's
Oh,
only going to give you magnetic readings.
okay. Well, that's awesome. Really cool to know. It's like all these little tools that are like in the palm of our hands. We don't even realize that we could make
Yes.
changes to our homes.
Mhm.
So that's pretty neat. Now, that was just an example of colors. Can you explain of some different, like I've heard that red, like Myra was telling me that she was one time going in trying to sell a home and there was this one wall in the house that was just red. It was a big, big, big piece of red. And she knew that it wouldn't sell because it just brings a lot of disharmony, I believe she said, and it can cause separation, divorce, whatever it might be. And as soon as they painted the wall within the next 24 hours, the house sold. So
Mhm.
talk about colors.
Well, fire colors, even though the do-it-yourself books, the one size fits all that says everyone should paint their door red, they are wrong. W-R-O-N-G, wrong.
And why?
Nobody should be painting their doors red because it's going to be bad at least 2 out of a 9-year cycle. And for some houses, like mine, neither one of my outside doors should ever be red. If my one door is red, it's going to cause me accidents, delays, pain, and illness. And delays, people say, what are delays? Well, it's delays in people hiring you, you completing projects, you getting paid. It leads to clutter. So I would never want that door painted red. If the other door was painted red, it would cause me stomach, abdominal, digestive, and reproductive organ problems. So if I followed those one size fits all, and the one that would cause the stomach problems is south, and those do-it-yourself books tell everybody to paint doors red, and then they tell everybody inside of the south area to put fire colors. inside of my south area, inside by the door, if I put fire colors, it's going to do the same thing and cause me major illnesses.
That's interesting. Now, one of my best friends, I'm pretty sure she bought her house and it had a red door. I'm pretty positive. And she had to get her, this is before she moved in there, but she does have stomach issues big time.
Yeah.
So it's just one door that's painted red. So you think that could possibly be a reasoning?
Yeah, because that door could have an energy like mine that always causes the stomach problems. So she could, if she's not ready to hire a professional to find out if it's, hurting her or not, everybody in the family would have to do it. Start using the other door and never come in that door for a while and see if she feels any better. But I've had clients where I've done the feng shui and their little girl's room was painted all these pinks and purples, and those are fire colors too. And the little girl was always having tummy aches and digestion problems. And I told the parents, you got to get the fire colors out of there. So we showed the little girl some other colors that weren't fire colors, and she picked some lovely green and cream color combination. And her tummy, well, of course, we put the elemental remedy in there, and took out the fire trigger, and she got better.
Wow, that's amazing. That must make you feel good for them, to be able to help that little girl.
Yeah, and but there are some times we tell you to bring in fire colors. One mother was they warned her at the hospital emergency room, if you bring your son in one more time with an injury, we're going to have to call child services, because he kept getting injured and it was small bones in him breaking. And when she had me come and feng shui it, and in his bedroom he had an energy combination that if we didn't put the fire colors in as a remedy, it caused bone problems all the time. And certain years when the annual came in, it made it worse for him.
Oh my gosh.
So when she got the fire colors in, he stopped getting injured.
Wow. How did she just know to come to you? Did she always believe in the feng shui approach?
She was actually someone I met going out to meetings, networking my business in the early years. Yeah. Neat. So not everybody has heard about feng shui, but then when they meet me and they find out it's actually a science, and with repeatable energy combinations with predictable consequences, and that we use the elements to remedy it. I'm not going to tell her to go in and hang some funny looking thing in her house where her family goes, "What'd you do that for?" Yeah.
I love if anybody's like painting their house right now and they're like, oh God, what do I do with this fire color? It's great to know. And I loved one of your YouTube videos where you said ignoring feng shui of your home is like ignoring your diet and expecting to feel better. I thought that was a great analogy. I'm such an analogy queen. So high fives. And so we got the fire colors, and there's different spectrums where it's like the earthy tones or it's like the fiery, something that you'd see in the sunset. Now I'm assuming there's also water, or is it watercolors?
Yes, watercolors are blues or blacks, and the brighter the blue, the stronger it is. But if you put a fountain, say, in your home in the wrong energy combination, you bring gossip, arguments, and legal problems.
Really?
But there are some energy combinations where you have to bring in water to avoid injuries from metal, because that part of the house has an unseen energy that's very strong metal energy and can cause you to have injuries from metal. And if by accident or just because of a decor choice, you bring in more metal furniture in there, that's when you can actually trigger really bad things to happen involving metal. And that could be metal, anything from a car to a knife or a gun or any other metal object. So that's why you've got to be careful when you bring in large pieces of metal into your house, because you're not sure what the energy is. You could be triggering something bad.
Do you have an example of that, of having somebody who had metal, like, let's say they had something in their kitchen? I mean, we have tons of knives in our kitchen. And,
everybody does, yeah.
Yeah, right? So what if, can we do an example?
It's more, if you have a kitchen door, then it becomes a really important room, because the important rooms are the rooms with doors to the outside. Okay. Because that's the energy come in, and we call those chi mouse, where it's the doors to the outside. So whether it be a front door, a patio door, a kitchen door, a family room door, anything like that, even a laundry room door to the outside. And I've even had clients where they had doors in bathrooms going to their pool area. So then it's a bathroom. We don't normally remedy bathrooms unless it's got one of those doors to the pool area. Then it's a door. So doors are very important. Next most important is, where do you sleep? Because you're in a relaxed state and you're more vulnerable to those energies, and you're there for 6 to 8 or more hours a night. So those are the two most important. Then comes the living rooms, well, your home office too, if you work from home, are next important. Kitchen is important the more you cook. But if you're like me and you have to get told how to turn the oven on every once in a while, yeah, it's not that important, except I have a door in my kitchen. So then the kitchen does need a remedy. But for instance, this one client, she had that energy of a lot of metal that these are not things you can see. These are things that the calculations reveal about the house. And I told her to put watercolors there. Well, she put a little bit, but not enough, and she injured her hand. She had to have stitches. And I said, good thing you had some watercolors there because it could have been worse. And then she got more. She got more watercolors there. She actually bought a fountain for the area, and she had no more injuries after that.
Amazing. Amazing. So our kitchens are important. The doors that lead to the outside are important. The bedroom and our living rooms, you said.
And home offices, yeah.
Home offices.
Yeah. So we don't remedy bathrooms unless they have a door to the outside. We don't remedy closets and laundry rooms unless they have the door to the outside in the laundry room. If you have a formal dining room, if you're using it twice a year for big family gatherings, it's not important. But if you, when no one's around, use it to run your business from sitting at the dining room table, then it becomes important. I've seen it all.
Sure.
Yeah. So there was no, I want to tell you about the energy grid.
Yes.
So
tell me about the energy
yes.
grid.
When the ancient masters did the calculations, they do it on these 3 fingers. And if you hold your fingers like the old Boy Scout pledge thing, and you see the 9 sections there, they would take their hand and put it up inside their great big sleeves where nobody could see what they were doing. And they were doing calculations there because Feng Shui has been around since before paper was invented.
Yeah, I was wondering where it all comes, how far back it goes.
Yeah, it goes back to before paper was invented in 107 AD. It was held in the Chinese emperor's palace, and he controlled who could have the help with Feng Shui remedies until 907 AD, when one Feng Shui master escaped the emperor's palace and lived in the mountains in hiding, raised a family, sons and daughters, all learned Feng Shui, and he brought in one apprentice that was not a family member to teach. And so other than his sons and daughters, the one apprentice was an ancestor of the Feng Shui master that taught me everything I know.
Wow, that is wild.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why he was the Feng Shui master that taught me everything I know and that I teach for him. That's why he was chosen to work on the Beijing Olympic sites out of every Feng Shui person in the world.
Oh my God, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I had a question, but I can have you continue, and it'll come back to me.
Back to the 9-section grid. So everybody can do this. Everybody can figure out where they can't do the calculations, but they can figure out where the 9-section grid is within their unit. So if it's a house or an apartment unit or a townhouse, each floor is going to have its own width and depth, but you would measure the interior width, divide it by 3, the interior depth, and divide it by 3. If there's parts sticking out, think of it as like if it's less than half, it's extra. If it's more than half, you got a missing section. Okay, so then you put your grid over it and you draw your imaginary lines. I've even had some people take painter's tape and put it on the floor till they got used to where the lines were. So these lines are very important because the only ones that are safe for your body to be bisected, meaning half of your body's in one energy, half of your body's in another energy, is into the center. So these micro homes, these mini homes, tiny homes that people are building, and then they're putting their bed along one end of it. They're getting chopped in 2 places by energy grid, and they're going to have health problems. So in those places, the only way that it's safe to put a bed in there is if they move it into what would be the middle section. So it'd be side to side this way going through the middle, or front to back going through the middle, because you can cross those middle lines. Think of the middle as a safety square. You can cross those all you want. You can sit on them when you work. You can lay across them when you sleep. They'll do no harm. But if your body is divided, say, between 2 sections of the grid, and wherever that's crossing your body, you're going to have health problems. The worst I've ever seen was one lady. I met her at a networking dinner. She could drive there, and then they set up a chaise lounge with all these bolsters and things to hold her a certain way. She would lay down during the presentation. She could sit up long enough to eat. She would lay back down for the rest of the presentation. She could get up to do a little bit of networking and have to lay back down for a while before she could drive home.
Oh, wow. And
She
why is
was
that?
she was laid up like that for 7 years with a back injury. She had to switch her career to do copywriting, laying down with all those bolsters.
Oh,
And she could not sit up for very long, as you could see. When I went and did her feng shui for her, I discovered she was sleeping on an energy line that was going right through her back, where the back was not healing. She had 5 surgeries, 3 of which she almost died on the table.
oh,
When her friends moved her bed off of that energy line to a direction that was actually better for her anyway, she said, PK, it was the first morning I woke up without back pain. And 6 months after she started doing the feng shui remedies I told her, I'm sitting next to her on a plane. We're flying up to Vancouver together for a 3-day business seminar where she sat next to me the whole time, and then we flew home. So,
oh my
yeah,
God.
turned her
Oh,
life around.
oh my God. I could cry for her. That
So
is
everybody that's
incredible.
listening can go and draw their own and see where their lines are and get yourself off an energy grid line. Your bed should be entirely in one section of the grid.
I think mine's in one section if I think about it, because
Good.
my bed is like, seems like it's over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
If anybody knows,
If it's in an outer corner, if it's in an outer corner and it's going towards one of the outer walls, most of the time it's not being divided. But I've had clients where it was dividing them at their legs, and they were having leg problems, and then we had to figure out a way, because it was a very unusual layout of an apartment, but we figured out a way and got them off of that energy grid line. I had another client when he kept buying better and better recliners, because every time he'd wake up from a nap in his recliner, his back would hurt. And then they finally just thought to call me, and I said, he's reclining across that line, because when he sits up, he's not on the line, but when he reclines, he goes across the line. So they just moved his
oh,
recliner, and it was fine.
oh my God, look at that. And if
Yeah.
anybody has no idea what we're talking about, I'm going to have this on YouTube so you can see PK holding up it's her pointer finger, her middle finger, and her ring finger together, like she mentioned, like Scouts honor.
Yeah, it's got
And be able to see what the heck we're talking about when we meant by like grids, because
the
when you look
nine
at your
sections.
fingers, it's
Yeah.
these 9 sections. It's from like the little lines from your knuckle bend. So
Yeah.
that's really
It's like a tic tac toe grid. Remember the game Tic Tac Toe? It's like a
yes.
tic tac toe grid. So think of the center square is safe to cross, but the other lines aren't.
I'm wondering if my bed, because we have a king size bed, but we are in a far corner. Maybe we're not far enough,
Yeah.
or we need to switch the bed around. But my boyfriend's been having major foot problems, so I'm wondering, because he's 6'3", 6'4", I should say.
He's
Maybe his
taller than you. Yeah.
yeah.
If he's taller than you and it's a smallish place, the end of your bed could be on that line.
That makes
Could
total
be right at his ankles. Yeah. Hmm.
very interesting. Now, I have heard
Oh,
this wasn't from
wait a minute. Another thing. Some people
yeah.
think, oh, I'll straddle my bed where the line runs between the two pillows and we'll avoid health problems that way. That causes a relationship to split apart. I had clients in Louisiana one time, and I actually flew there to help her, and we were pushing her bed to be all in one section of the grid. And while we were pushing it over, she goes, my husband and I have said to each other, it's like we're sleeping in the same bed in different rooms.
Oh,
So
oh,
get your bed entirely in one section. The other
okay.
thing that splits it up is if you have an exposed beam overhead that goes between the pillows, or an exposed beam that goes across your body. Exposed beams are like those energy grid lines. You need to not be underneath them.
Wow, that's really cool.
We could do a whole nother show on how to remedy beam.
I know. I'm like, this is mind blowing to me. I'm like, give me more examples. So I'm sure everybody at home's like, wow. But what's funny when you mention people do the tiny homes, I had one of my Instagram followers say that she's converting a bus into her home. So that's really interesting that you had mentioned about the bed. So
Mhm.
she would have to be very, very cautious about making sure that her bed is positioned in between the grids and not crossing over. So she doesn't want to go over to
Yeah.
one end of the
Yeah.
bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a narrow grid because of the length of the bus. So that part's going to be narrow. If it was me, I would pick the part where you wanted it, where the bedroom's going to be kind of like in the middle of it. And then she folds down into the middle section, because that will give her more space for a wider bed. Because if she goes into trying to be in the middle of the tip of it, and
Hmm.
fold forward, she's going to be on a very tiny, that's probably going to be less than 3 feet, and that's not even a twin bed.
Interesting. So she had like say a pull-out couch and she
Yeah.
were to pull
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
that
So
would be okay because
yes,
she'd
yeah,
be in
because
those crates.
if it was in that, so basically, if you think of this as a long, narrow bus, she'd want to get the pull-out couch to be on either side of this middle section, so it
Ah,
would pull over across into the middle.
that's so neat. Very, very neat. And what about like just maybe it's and something another example. What about her kitchen area? Would that be something that would be also a remedy that she would need to fix because of the small space?
Well, no, the kitchen area, in that case, I would just make it as functional and give the right kind of storage. So if she's going to move into that and live there full time, she needs to really consider what she needs and how it will be stored, because it's going to be seen and you don't want all kinds of clutter and stuff out like that. So when you're designing a kitchen, you're got to think what you need to store and how you need to store it so it doesn't become a jumbled mess. But in a house, there is a good direction for each house. The orientation of each house, there's a better direction to have the oven door open towards.
Hmm.
Uh,
Wow.
but but it's not as crucial as it was back in ancient China, when the oven was a big open hole in the wall like a fireplace.
Oh, yep.
So our
Hmm.
modern ovens are energy efficient, and the room doesn't feel the heat except for when you open it.
Sure.
So there's one really good direction to open it, and then there's three other ones that are alternately good, and then there's four that aren't so great, but I wouldn't tell somebody they have to redo their kitchen just because of that.
Right. So
Yeah.
now just kind of circling back to the colors. So there's the fire colors and the watercolors. Are those the two main colors that like schemes that you are really focusing on?
No, when I'm working with a client and they're asking me about choosing color schemes, I tell them to go with the most neutral palette that they like.
Mm.
So creams, coffees, light shades of green. If you do light shades of pink on walls, it's going to add up to fire. If you do light colors of lavender, it's going to add up to fire. If you do light blues, because some people like blue walls, that's going to add up to water and could, in certain years, bring gossip, arguments, and legal problems. So I tell them to stay away from those primaries and stay with the neutrals. If they are prone towards pink for a child's room, I'd say let's go with peach and make it more of a brownie peach than the pinky peach. So
So should I get rid of my lavender sheets and pillowcases?
it depends on what you got going on in the energies of your bedroom. I don't know what's going on in there. I had one client, though, you mentioned that. She's a realtor, and she was actually a student of mine that ended up hiring me, because a lot of those do, because they come in and they go, wow, it's more than I expected. I say, yeah, would you go study acupuncture to work on yourself, or would you go hire somebody? And they went, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
So she hired me to feng shui her home for her, because she had no deals that she was closing as the selling agent or the buyer's agent.
Okay.
And I went in her bedroom. She had this gorgeous, I mean, it was divine, royal purple bedding set, bright royal purple. But with the energy combination in her bedroom that year, it was causing delays. Nobody was hiring, projects weren't getting completed, she wasn't getting paid. And so I said, just put it in one of those vacuum seal bags, stick it out of the sight, because if you don't see the color, it doesn't affect the room, and then put in this other color or something neutral for the year, because I looked at the calculations and I said, oh, next year it's going to be good. So you can bring your beautiful purple back out next year and it's going to actually help you make money. But this year it's causing disasters for you. So
Oh,
yeah. Hmm.
that's amazing. So you can save your sheets and use them
Yeah.
possibly for another time.
Hmm. But
That's
I mean, there are some bedrooms, like my friend's daughter's bedroom. She should never have fire colors in that bedroom.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
of the, yeah.
Yeah, because of the energy combination that's permanent in that room. Like my door should never be red because of the permanent energies. Although from her date of birth, when she wears fire colors, reds or purples, it makes her feel energized. So
Mm.
that's something I'd like to give your listeners if they'd like.
Yeah, yeah, because I was curious. Like here I am, I'm wearing like a purple sweater right now, and I threw
Mhm.
my head like a headband on because my hair is like a wreck right now. And so, yeah, wearing colors, for
Yeah.
me, I always go back to the chakra system. And sometimes when I need grounding, I'll wear red. And other times when I need to feel like connected to God and the angels, I'll wear a purple. So,
Mhm.
would you agree with that?
If you're working with the chakra systems, yes. Because you mentioned the fire colored wall earlier. In the psychology of colors and how it affects our eyes and affects our emotions. If fire is a color that can make people angry and agitated and I checked into a hotel room one time. The room was decorated in red. I was like, what kind of hotel am I in? I went to I mean, I really is like, I was just like, I don't even want to unpack in here. So I went to the desk. I said, do you have a room that's not red?
Yeah.
And they changed my room. Yes. So, but from each person's date of birth and their gender, I can tell them what colors feed their nature. So according to your date of birth, you have colors that feed your nature. Maybe when you wear fire colors, it feeds you. And when you wear earth tones, you're wearing your own color. Because when a person is an earth trigram, fire makes earth. So fire energizes the earth person. When they wear earth, they're wearing their own colors. So those are the two colors that are good for two color groups that are good for them to wear. I'm personally a wood person, so I wear black a lot. And because it's a watercolor, I wear blue a lot because it's a watercolor. And I do wear the greens that look good on my skin tone because I'm the wood person and green is the wood color. So it depends on your date of birth. So if people want to know that information, along with what's their best sleeping headboard direction to get a good night's sleep, and along with what direction to keep the most clutter free. Because if you get clutter in the direction that relates to your birth trigram, you have financial setbacks, health problems, and relationship problems. And the way to have that not triggered is to not have the clutter not triggered by clutter, is to keep those areas clean and neat. There's two directions right now. There's always two directions in a 20-year period that everybody needs to keep clean and neat. And right now it's the Northeast and the Northwest. Okay. So maybe from your date of birth, one of those is your personal direction you need to keep clean for your lifetime. But for me, it's not. So I have my personal one and those other two that I want to keep clean and neat.
That's interesting because I was curious about that because I'm saying to myself earlier, thinking of all these questions to ask you, and I'm like, okay, so say the house is totally like, you came to my home, we did the feng shui, we got it all down, but my room, normally most of the time you can't see our floor. Because for me, energetically, if the kitchen and living room is clean, I can focus because my desk is in kind of between our kitchen and the living room, and I cannot focus for the life of me if it's messed up. And my boyfriend and I just had a conversation yesterday that every Wednesday we are going to power clean the house because I just can't keep getting cluttered because it really, really affects me, and I do a lot of work on my computer. So for me, I'm like, go ahead. Screw up our bedroom. Like if you want to destroy the room, I don't care. But that's interesting. The Northeast and the Northwest part of our home, that I would have to check that out and see what's okay to clutter.
And if it does land in like a closet or a bathroom, it's just keeping it neat and orderly and what we used to call tidy, keeping it tidy. So it's not that it has to be minimalistic. I am not a minimalistic preaching kind of feng shui person, because everybody needs their certain amount of stuff. Right. The less you can live with, that's great, but it's what your comfort level is. It's about keeping things neat and orderly.
I think that gives people some comfort. Like, yes, yeah. I love hoarding onto this and holding on to that, which goes into my next question too. And also, I would love to know, I would love to make an appointment and set up something with my birthday and everything to figure out which sleeping direction's good for me. That's something I've always wondered. I've heard, and I don't remember where I heard this from, that and I'm sure you probably will disagree on this one, that if your head is facing the north direction and your feet are facing like towards the south, it's good. But again, it all probably comes with your own structure.
That's one of those that is one of those one size fits all things where they say everybody should have their head north. That's good for 1/2 of the people on the earth. It's only excellent for 1/8 of the people on the earth. And that's good for the people that were born in the north trigram. So if the Kan, Kan, is one of the trigrams of the I Ching. Its position is in the north, so that means sleeping with your head to the north is good. Okay. My trigram is Xun, Sun, and its position is the southeast. So for me, southeast is the best direction. But if that turns out to be a corner in my house, then I sleep with my head to the east direction, which is my second best sleeping direction.
Oh, cool. I was going to say, if you have to go travel somewhere and the bed is facing a certain direction, do you maneuver your body too?
I have not in a hotel. I have not in a hotel room tried to sleep in a different direction because usually I'm only there for a couple of nights, but I do find myself sleeping better at different hotels. But I did go recently to a hotel that had beams in the room. And they
Ooh.
had the bed angled to a corner, so it didn't have a headboard there anyway. And then the beam went across it. So I actually moved things around and slept at an angle on that bed. So I was out from underneath the beam because I wasn't going to get my head towards a wall anyway. Because you want it restful at the top of your head.
Yeah.
A lot of people say you can't have your head towards a wall with a window on it where the window's low or high, but it's only if you sleep with the window open. You don't want the air moving around the top of your head, which is why you don't want it angled to a corner, because when it's angled to a corner, there's a lot of open space. If it's towards a window and you keep the window open, it's too much air movement. You talked about the chakra system earlier. The crown chakra wants to rest at night. That's why you want it towards a solid something. But if you have a window there and you don't sleep with the window open, get you some insulated curtains so you don't have to worry about breaking glass or drafts, then it's fine to put your head towards a wall with a window.
I should tell my parents because they are the worst sleepers. My mom sleeps like 3 nights and just cannot sleep because her bed is at the head of a window, and she loves having the window open to have the wind on her
Yeah.
head. But she
No,
does not sleep at all.
that's
So I
why
should tell her
she.
to close that, go get herself a fan, and maybe that'll be better for them. So that's
You know,
interesting.
you just made me think of something. Maybe that's why when windows were just boarded up, drafty pieces, holes in the wall, way back when before we had glass and everything, maybe that's why people slept with bonnets on their heads at night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Total sense for sure.
Yeah. Do you
I
know
love
why they slept with canopy beds?
No. Why is
Because
that?
especially in houses with thatched roofs,
Yep.
it's so that bugs and rodents couldn't fall into their bed on them from the thatched roof.
Oh my God, that's awful.
And then we've romanticized them.
I know. I was like, oh, maybe it's better for the dream state. No, it's to catch the bugs. That's disgusting. That's really cool to know. PK is so filled with so much knowledge, guys. Like, she's already taught me like 15 things, and I've known her for 24 hours. So this is so great. Now, this is really interesting, and I love that you're able to give some pointers on some things. And of course, everyone's home is very different, so we can't give direct advice. But I think that kind of learning about the fire colors and the water colors is so interesting. I did have a few people who asked questions as well.
Okay.
Somebody had asked, let's see, where did I write it? Oh, yeah. Somebody said, what's the most important feng shui to promote peace and love in our homes? Is that a big trick?
Well, no, I would say the clutter, because clutter in certain directions are going to affect different people according to their date of birth, but especially the Northeast. If the Northeast is not kept clean and neat, which is affecting everybody right now, one of the side effects is disobedient children.
Ooh,
So that's whether it's a detached garage or shed out in the Northeast, or your attached garage or a bedroom or whatever's in the 45 degrees of Northeast if you're from the center of your house. And to find the center of your house, you look at that Tic Tac Toe grid and find where the center would be.
Okay. And
Mhm.
so I bet everybody's running right now to go find the middle of their homes, especially if their kids are being pain in the asses. I love it so much. Now, this was a really cool question one of my friends, Amanda, had asked. And she had asked when feng shui began, which you had mentioned, and why it's useful. And also, and especially in a place of business, makes total sense. Now, she mentioned, particularly working in a group, like in a building, say like a hospital or a clinic, that helps provide mental health care for other people. Could they benefit from creating feng shui environment in that building as well?
Yes. Well, first off, all buildings have the energies. They're going to affect the people that are in there for longer periods of time more. So it's going to be affecting the staff, which is why even the Vegas casinos have feng shui done. So whether you own or lease a building, there's energies in there already that are affecting us. And so businesses that want to keep their employees happy so they don't have to spend a lot of money finding and training new employees, then they want to bring in feng shui, not just for making more money, but also for keeping their employees happy and healthy, because health comes before anything. When I'm teaching my students, I'm telling them, when you're looking at the energy combinations, First, we're making sure to take away anything that could cause health problems, then relationship issues, and then money, because money can't buy the first two.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm thinking as soon as you mentioned casinos, I'm like, oh, Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing plants and water fountains and like a huge center of the place. Like it was a huge water fountain. So yeah, and it makes sense. Health, they want to keep their employees healthy. They want to bring in money. Yeah, that makes total sense. So yeah, I think that would be great to have like, hospitals and clinics and everything to be able to have feng shui in their environments. Now, this was a cool question because, a lot of my followers follow me for my mediumship abilities. And they asked, is feng shui affected by our loved ones' belongings that they still hold on to and don't know what to do with?
No. Their belongings are fine as long as you like having them there. If it's something you inherited from someone that doesn't bring you good remedies, good feelings about them, then just take a picture of it and donate it to somebody that loves it. Maybe somebody visits your home and says, "Oh, I adore that." Say, "Let me take a picture of it. You can have it."
Aw.
Because then it's going someplace where it's going to be loved and they have no attachment to it. And then you are feeling good about having passed it on to somebody that you know and care about. But when it comes to the remains, like some people bring in the cremation urns into their home. I had one client, they had made an altar for the husband's mom in their master bedroom. And I was like, no, it can't be there. It can be in your office. It can be in your living room. It can be in your dining room. It cannot be in your bedroom. The one thing you don't want in your bedroom are the remains of somebody, whether it be your beloved pet or a family member.
Okay, that makes sense. You do not want your mother-in-law looking down on you in your bedroom. No, thank you.
And photos of some people say you can't have the family photos in your bedroom. That's crazy. You have photos of things you love, you
Mhm.
know. And when it comes to clutter, if you don't love it, use it, or know what you're saving to use it for, then it's considered clutter.
I like
Mhm.
that. That's a good way of putting it because people are like, well, what's clutter? So what's clutter to you? I like
Yeah.
that you, kind of mentioned that. Now, this was pretty cool. And from the stories that you mentioned about your friend's daughter having tummy aches and such, somebody had asked, what's the best arrangement for nurseries? I think this is a great question with that.
Yes, I just recently had some clients that when I did their annual update for them in 2018, I told them the fire colors we're putting in your bedroom are going to be fantastic for your business. You're going to really grow your business this year, but be very careful because it could make a baby. And they
Oh,
said to me, "We've been married 15 years. It's not going to happen. We're okay with it. And we've moved on. But thank you for warning us." And I said, "Okay," because I love them dearly. They're my videographers. And
oh,
this is all public knowledge because they've talked about this in public. So um, after her first trimester, she calls me up and goes, "PK, you're one of the first to know. Remember what you said about our bedroom? Well, we're pregnant." And
oh, God.
now that is what they went around saying to everybody her entire pregnancy. OMG, we're pregnant. OMG, we're pregnant. Their last name is Geffner. They named him Oliver Milo Geffner to give him initials OMG.
Oh,
Yes. So for
that
for their baby gift, another dear friend of ours that we're all like sister friends, another dear friend of ours and I went in together and bought him the bassinet because I told them which way to put the bassinet. So the which way the baby's head was not going to go the same as mom and dad unless they were sometimes they have those little pillow things where they sleep in between mom and dad for a while. But the bassinet was going to go picture mom and dad's headboard going against the wall and baby's head was going to be pointing towards that top of the bed because it was a high basket type um, bassinet. Babies don't sleep well like your mom with the window above her head. Babies don't sleep well with slats above their head, so you need to even on the outside of the bed or something, crib, put like a cloth or something, attach it so they can't pull it off, so it feels like a wall above their head, so it's stopping the energy from moving around their head. And
uh,
babies will naturally turn when they're old enough to turn. If you don't put them down, you don't find out what's their good sleeping direction and put their head that way anyway to get a good night's sleep out of them to start with, they will literally turn in the crib to what direction feels better to them. So you might as well move the crib that direction or start putting them down that way because they're going to keep turning to that direction because it feels good to them when they're sleeping.
wow. And it must feel
Mhm.
like a protection too, for
Yeah.
sure. Oh, that's so neat. I love that.
Mhm.
Now, this was kind of cool. This was one of the last questions I believe I had from my followers here was wearing a mirror necklace, does it return bad vibes and wishes towards you who when it's coming back from the sender? So if I have somebody that was like, oh, screw Candace, and I hope this and that happens to her, and I'm wearing a mirror necklace, will that bad energy and vibes go back to them? Would that pertain to feng shui?
No, but mirror necklaces or mirrors hanging on your wall cannot tell good from bad vibes. They can't even tell good from bad hair days. All they do is reflect light off of the whatever's standing in front of them. So
Okay.
mirrors are not going to trigger something good. If they're in the wrong place in your house, though, and you utilize them by looking in them, they could keep you single. According to your date of birth, there's directions where we don't want to have mirrors. So that's the only thing about mirrors. But as far as vibes go, this is, you and I get off topic of feng shui sometimes, but whatever you send off to somebody else bounces back to you too. So it's
Hmm.
not like you can wish bad on somebody and not expect it to boomerang on you. So
Yeah.
when people tell me, what can I do to get rid of this neighbor that's annoying to me? I'm like, well, there's some feng shui folk beliefs that people think they can do it, and it's all superstition and it really doesn't work. And some of them are kind of gross. But what I tell people is pray for something wonderful to happen to them or their family so they move somewhere else.
Oh,
Now, what if that boomeranged on you?
right.
And you had something wonderful happen and you were the one that moved away, but for one reason or another you're not neighbors anymore. So you just, if you're going to pray for somebody, pray for some. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's a
Yeah.
really great. I need to
it's
do that.
it's not feng shui, but it's some other years of knowledge.
Oh, wow. I wish I knew that when my old landlord was such a crazy bitch to me, but yeah, so that's pretty wild. I love everything that you've explained here. And my one other question, before we kind of be able to tell people where to find you and everything, I've also have heard, and I again don't know where this came from, that if my back is facing my front door, that I'm
Like it is now.
Yes, exactly. That I am not going to have opportunities come my way.
That's a folk belief, and when I say folk, I mean FOLK, like the folks in the family or whatever. So it's a folk belief. Um, it- we've all heard of Doc Holliday, and one of his things was he would never sit in with his back to the saloon door. It's you're at risk that way of being attacked, and
Mhm.
your adrenaline stays up. So imagine working 8 hours a day in a cubicle where people are walking behind you all the time.
Yeah.
You're Even though you know who most of those people are, your adrenaline stays up. So those people get adrenal failure more often. So I wish for no one to have to work in a cubicle. But the same thing would be if your door was opened and closed a lot. But if both those doors behind you are locked, there's no harm in you sitting this way because they're going to have to tear down the doors to get in on you. According to your date of birth, though, if I were to feng shui your home, I might have you sit at a different direction or a different angle because we have a direction that supports our right brain for creativity. So if you
Mhm.
were writing a book or a screenplay or anything creative, your marketing materials, anything, you want to use your right brain for that. But then when you go to edit it, you want to turn to your left brain direction. Or if you have to work on your bookkeeping, you have to turn to your left brain direction. I've had students with attention deficit get better grades, and their mom was able to supervise them less while they did their homework just by sitting in their own personal left brain directions to get their homework done.
That
So
is so cool. Oh my,
that's one. Yeah,
when can
that
I make an appointment with you? Because I feel like you need to just come on over. I will feed you and I will pay you and we will get my house together. So you do this remotely worldwide. So you do calls and you help people figure it out, even if they're in a whole nother country or a whole nother state. How can they find you to book this?
okay. It's easy. PK, my initials like Pretty Kitty. PK Feng Shui, F as in Frank, ENG. I know it's not pronounced that way. S as in sugar, HUI.com, pkfengshui.com. They can find me there. And if they want me to email them back their general 45-degree trigram directions, they can put a PK at in front of that and send me an email. And
Awesome.
what
Awesome.
I want them to do in the subject line is put put the name of your
Healing Grace, the podcast.
Just put Healing Grace on there, or they can put Candace if they forgot. So they can put Healing Grace or Candace in there. And then in the body of it, all I need is their first name. It doesn't even have to be a legal name. It can be a nickname. I do need their gender because not all names can I figure out what the gender is. And then I need their full date of birth, month, day, and year. And the reason why I tell them they don't have to send me their full name is because, emails aren't as secure as we'd like them to be. Yeah. So if they're giving me their full date of birth, they don't have to I don't need their full name and everything.
Sure. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then I will email them back that information that we've been talking about.
Fabulous. And they can also find you on Facebook at fb.com/PK Feng Shui, FENGSHUI. They can also find you at linkedin.com/IN/PK Feng Shui, and on YouTube, youtube.com/PK Feng Shui. I will have all of these links in the show notes too. So if people forget, they'll know exactly where to go. And I will be emailing you right after this, and I would love to set up an appointment and be able to bring in all good stuff. And I truly believe in the energies in our environment really truly affect us, and you are just phenomenal, like truly a fascinating human being. And I could listen to you all day. I probably have 45 million other questions, but I would have you here for about 5 hours. And I think that your energy is radiant. I can just when you meet somebody, you can just know that they're trusting. So anybody who does not see PK's face right now, I'm telling you right now, she has just beautiful energy to her, very trusting old soul. And this video will also be on YouTube as well. So if you're trying to understand when she's talking about the grids, you can look there. You can also see PK and her amazing smile. So thank you so much for having me having you on here.
That's okay. I'm glad Myra connected the two of us. And if they want to see what that grid looks like, if they go to fengshuiclutter.com, that's a special URL I have that goes to an article. It shows the 9-section grid and the different trigrams named in it. It gives a little bit of a description about each one of the trigrams if they want to go in there and try and guess what their trigram is, because your personality has to do with your trigram too. So someone who's gracious, nurturing, and caregiving, they just have a nurturing nature. They're the mother trigram. And I know men that are that. A furniture store owner, he's that, and he cares about people. That's why he does his business. My insurance agent and financial advisor, he's that, and he does that because he cares about people. I know healers and physical therapists. That's their trigram, but they're males. But whatever they do in their life, they're doing it because they care about people.
Wow, I think that's so special. And I think that interior designers should have some type of feng shui put into their education too, because it could make a huge difference for them too. So I think that's so neat. Oh, you are so fascinating. And I love the work you're doing. I think that you are definitely doing some healing work for this earth journey while you're here. And it's really fascinating and special. And thank you for teaching us. And if you guys want to contact her, again, all of her information is going to be in the show notes. pkfengshui.com. You are fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on here and taking time out of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.